Hi there. This is a new format I'm trying out, where I talk through how I play certain songs. Today I would like to talk about the last video, which was the ZIG-ZAG-BOOGIE. Let's get started on how to play this boogie. First of all, we need to look at the left hand. We need to figure out how to reach the notes we want to play. There's different methods on how to play those. The simplest method would be using all 5 rows. However, since we want to transpose this shape to other keys like F and G, we've got a problem. Since this is a 5-row Jankó Piano, we cannot simply move this up because otherwise we would be missing a key up here. Therefore, we need to restrict ourselves to 4 rows. Usually this is not a problem at all, but in this particular instance it does make the song more challenging. Now that we know that we cannot play this in every key, we need to find a different way. There's 2 ways, and they both have their advantages and disadvantages. First of all, in this case, you use the pinky and the ring finger to play those awkward notes. The second way is the one that I eventually chose for the final song. Now, what's the strengths and weaknesses of the 2? It mostly depends on what your vision for the song is. Do you want to have a regular rhythm, or do you want to have a heavy swing feel? For example, I could play like this. Or we could go for a swing feel. Let's just look at the left hand. Our options are or, eventually I chose the second option because it kind of had a nice groove and it worked really well with the second part of the boogie, which was this one. Since that swing feeling creates a rhythm that is difficult to play when using pinky and ring finger, because it forces you to quickly flick the pinky back to C. I finally chose the second method, which is using this kind of awkward shape. Of course, one last option would be to restrict yourself to playing it this way. And now that I think about it, maybe that's what I should have done. The downside to this method is that it angles your wrist slightly less ergonomically. Usually you want to play the octave 2 rows below the pinky with your thumb. This is the same row, kind of tilting the hand slightly awkwardly. Let's look at the right hand. First of all, boogies are typically fairly straightforward. There's usually about 3 licks that you need to learn, and when you've learned them, you can play the whole boogie. The first lick is this. These licks typically just get transposed to different That's the first one. The second one is this. And of course, again, we transpose it. Back. G, F, C. The second lick is the reason why I chose to go with the swing feeling. Without swing, it sounded like this. And I felt like adding the swing element nicely highlighted those two notes. The third lick is up here. The fingering I chose goes like this. In the sheet music I read, which was intended for the traditional piano, I saw it notated as using the second and the third finger. If you're creative, you could always try using the third finger on F sharp. But I felt like staying with the second finger, both on E and on F sharp, seemed the most comfortable to me. Nice. Let's talk about the end lick. First of all, there's probably ways to play it while having much more control. We could do something like... We could also probably kind of start up here and do something like that. However, I wanted to show off the special Janko technique, sliding down rows. Just because it's fun and I wanted to test it out and show you guys. The trick in here is to not go too quickly, because you need to maintain some amount of control. I try to consciously go as slowly as possible. That's basically it. If you want to listen to the whole song, you can watch the last video where I play all of it. Thank you and see you next time.